Next up, it's Ron Tanner, a mentor, advisor and coach to top CEOs and business leaders. During Ron's talk, he'll help you understand how to ready your business for the likely upcoming recession, and not just how to survive, but how to thrive, both now and when we come out the other side.
Hi everybody, my name's Ron Tanner and I'm here to chat to you about the coming recession and what we need to do about it. We live in differing times. Probably many of you are listening to this. It's your first experience of a really deep recession. We're not right in it yet. We're just in the first part of it. But when we get to unpack it and have a look at it in a historical context, we can start to make sense of it. And we can start to understand what we need to do to survive and actually take the opportunities that this type of recession environment can present to us. I think the last recession that I lived through, which really had an impact, was the 2008 recession. That was a global financial crisis and is heavily referenced today as the last big recession. And so there's a lot of comparison to that. But let's think about that. What type of recession was that? Because what the first part of this talk is what I'm going to discuss and share with you is the importance of identifying the type of recession we're in or going to be in, predicting we're in, although none of us really know at this stage, but the likelihood of whether it's going to be a V-type recession, which is a sharp recovery recession, a W, which is periods of recovery followed by a period of downturn, followed by a flat period, followed by another period of downturn, followed by an final upturn where we go back into growth. Or will it be an L, which is down hard and bump along the bottom for quite a long time? Or finally, as some people have put forward, it could be a whoosh, a bit like the Mikey stripe, which is you go down deep and then you slowly rise out of it at a very predictable angle. And let's define what a recession is first. Recession is 2 quarters of negative growth. That's a fairly commonly accepted definition. If we have more than 2 quarters, up to 4 quarters, it can turn into a depression, but nobody really wants to use that word these days, so they always just keep with their recession language. Having lived through a few recessions and dealt with a lot of companies in that situation, I come from a finance background and I'm also a coach. So when I work with companies, I notice there's 2 things that happen in a recession. Doesn't matter what type of recession. In the first part, everybody seeks to take cover, like they cut. They cut and they cut and they cut. And you could say that sometimes they overcut and sometimes they just cut for cutting's sake, for survival's sake. But there's also another part of it that happens is personal change that happens when a recession comes along. Because a recession forces us individually to re-examine everything that we do, everything that we focus on, everything that we desire. Our vision has to change to adapt to the circumstances. And how we respond to that either supports us or actually hinders us in taking our companies forward. So let's have a look at the types of recessions. In this slide that I'm putting up now, it details the different times in history that we've had the different types of recessions. On the left-hand side, it details a V-type recession. V-type recession is characterized by 1 quarters of negative growth. It comes back pretty quickly. The For a very simple one, it affects usually one geographical area or one event or one economy in isolation. And that was in France in 1968 when they had the student riots who virtually shut down Paris. It's a good example of where an economy gets shut down very quickly, but a matter was dealt with. There was a fair bit of fighting on the streets. It was an anti-war protest, but it lasted for the summer, and then the summer was over. It created negative growth. The government opened the economy, put a lot of money into it, and had a sharp rebound. The second is a U-type recession. That's a U-type can either be a W or a U, and this is where you have two quarters of negative growth, and that was caused by the Japanese tsunami in Fukushima, and that caused a recession in the Japanese economy. So it's really how long does it go for? But again, it's characterized by that was another localized event. In 2008, remember, we had what we determined a W recession, because we had an event that affected the world, but it affected it in one asset class, being the finance sector. So although it rippled out to other asset classes, it wasn't a complete shutdown of all asset classes. Whereas where we get the L recession on the far right-hand side, it's ironic that this was caused by the oil shock of the 1972-73. And basically what happened is the Arabs decided to double the price of oil overnight. They weren't happy with the political situation between Israel and the Emirates. They weren't happy that the Western nations were taking advantage of them. And they joined together, formed OPEC, and said, let's double the price of oil overnight. And the world went into a shock. Because you had the world basically ran on oil. There wasn't any electrification, alternative energy, electric cars or anything. Everybody used oil. And all that I can remember from that recession is that it cost us a lot more in petrol to go surfing than double overnight. And we weren't very, very happy about that at all. That's why I remember it. And but what that did was that sent a shock through the world that affected all sectors. So we're in this situation now that we have a shock happened in the world due to the coronavirus, which is a health shock, which is affecting people's movements and health and lockdown, etc. And that's caused an economic shock across all asset classes, bar a few, call it home delivery services, etc., and a number of software services, Netflix, etc. But most of the economy is affected by this. And because the drop-off has been so deep, what it will take is a longer time to recover. Hence, it's more than likely you have 3/4 of negative growth and you have this L-shaped recession. The L-shaped recession is unusual because it's, I'm recording this approximately a week before the event, and last night we had a drop in the oil price that it went into negative for the closest contract, because basically there's nowhere to put the oil. And so people are paying other people to take oil off their hands because there's no storage facilities available for it, because the oil producers haven't stopped producing oil, although OPEC has reduced it somewhat, but not enough. There's too much oil slushing around, price went negative, which is a shock, a shock. So you can imagine the credit implications of that for futures traders, the oil market. These are significant events that drive shock into the economy. And when there's shock in the economy, what that does is disrupt supply chains. So people will look at it and go like, oh my, whoa, what's happening here? I'm not so sure what's happening here. And it causes a contraction. And when it's a deep contraction like this, then it takes time for it to unravel. So if we break an L-shaped recession into 3 parts, the first part we're going to go through is what I just mentioned, is shock. This is where I mentioned before that people cut. But there's also a scrambling to deal with a lot of conversations. A lot of people respond. And the big response that's coming on at the moment, everybody's going, oh, you've got to go online. You've got to come offline to online. Offline's not going to exist anymore. People aren't going to actually occupy any office space anymore. So, it's all going to be work from home. We're all going to be online. And so there is a natural explosion in growth. But really what's happening is people are actually looking for something. And what the second part of this talk, which I'm going to work with you with, is actually, let's take a step back. And in those first 3 months, what do you need to do? For the second 6 months, it becomes building the platform to grow from. And the last 9 months, because a L-shaped recession will roughly last for 18 months. So we're talking September 21 till really we get some good growth coming through. But it'll be happening the 6 months between April and September 21. We will get some good growth. And after September 21, we will get a very, very long growth cycle, because simply so much money will be pumped into the economy. It's a bit like, the Fed being an arsonist. They're just put petrol on the fire. But when that works its way through its system, yes, we will definitely go into growth. The other reason that the recession takes so long, an L-shaped recession takes so long, is that you can see from the next slide I've put up, is employment. And how long it takes for employment to get back to the pre-recession level. So look at that in the slide in the 2008-2009 financial crisis. What we found was that it took a very, very long period for employment levels to get back to what they originally were. And this is why the government's brought in the furlough scheme, because it actually doesn't want companies to retrench people and get them on to the, move them from being employed to being unemployed, because it takes so much more effort to get people from being unemployed to be employed again. But when there's this structural shock, such a big structural shock in the economy from this event, it's invariably that this is going to happen. What do we need to do about it today? What can you do in your company? What can you focus on? So there's lots of people who are going around saying, yes, start lots of webinars and get your product online, as I said before, but let's just stand back a bit and just focus on the first 3 months. And there's three things, three themes, three contextual drivers, I would like to say. And they are, first of all, engagement with your client base. Got to go back and engage with your client base. But the trick is, you can't sell to your client base because no one really wants to buy at the moment. No one's interested in your product benefits right now, unless it absolutely helps them to solve a pressing situation to do with their crisis, a la help them get a loan or something. But you can't sell your product, so you need to engage your client differently. Secondly, you need to product innovate. We've all heard about how so many inventions happen during recessions, but you've got to look at actually what is your product and how to innovate it. And finally, it's the opportunity to build a personal brand. How are you showing up? How are you communicating yourself? Let's start with the first one. What do we mean by engagement? It's not just emailing people. It's not just calling them up. What engagement means is going back into your client base at a micro level and engaging with them with a product that you've designed that's an awareness product. Now, where I learned this is I was a coach with and a partner, founding partner in Shirlaw's UK, and Darren Shirlaw and Lindsay Boyd did a lot of great work, and they still are, and you can find them on Facebook. They're called Bob. Do some great work around this, going into your client base and building a community. They go very deep in building community. But let's just examine, first of all, how you go into your client base. And what's recommended is, and I totally support this, is you build an awareness product. What's an awareness product? Well, an awareness product is exactly what Steve and Phil and the team at Silicon Brighton are doing today. This is an awareness product. This is not a product that gets sold. It's a product that's educating people. It's creating a human connection with all of the clients and all of the community of Silicon Brighton. Another this is a very large scale event, but a smaller scale event I attended. There's a consultancy partnership called Caffeine. They brought on a BBC presenter who gave a 30-minute session on how to perform on Zoom, some tips how to do it. I found very, very useful, but it connected me with them. And then I forwarded that information to a lot of people in my client base because it was very, very useful. So they had created a product that created a deeper relationship with the client without selling to them. It's a human touch. That's what people want right now, is a human element to this. Secondly, you need to have a go at innovating your product. Why's that? What's innovate your product mean? Well, if I can put it to you, you're not going to be selling the same thing that you're selling before this all happened at the end of this. You're going to have to change. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, what you've got to do is you've got to go into your whole customer journey and you've got to work out actually what product do I deliver to my clients. And when I talk about what product that you deliver, I don't mean the actual physical thing that you do. So, if you're an accountant, you deliver accountancy or tax services or lawyer, etc., advice or everything. A product is actually the whole of the customer experience. So when you look at that, I always ask the question, what do you do that others find hard to do? What's your uniqueness around that, around your product? So I've got a client that web design agency, sells complex back-end systems, high-level creativity with the front-end design. Who wants to buy one of those now? Not many people. So we looked at the product and we looked at pivoting the product. So the first thing we did was went and found a platform that we could incorporate into the client list that would be useful to them, but something we could add to, something that was innovative for us. And what the word was creativity. So what the agency's known for is it's highly creative. So its actual product isn't building complex back-end web systems. It's actually known for its creativity. That's its product. So you take that that one thing and you innovate and add that to a new product inside your business. Finally, we need to build our personal brand. Why is that? What we want to do is we want to create a human connection in these times. It's not about going out and selling something. It's about someone connecting with who you are, who your business is. And so how do you build your personal brand? Well, as I said, if you go on the Bob platform, that's what they specialize in. I'm not a specialist in that, but I just know that as more people actually connect in the personal branding space and become known for what they are, that is an attraction for clients to communicate back with them. So it's instead of pushing your product on your clients. So we used to before, which was sell, get more, sell, get more, sell, get more, boom times. Now we need to engage the clients by pulling them towards us. And a personal branding strategy does that. But what's most interesting is what stops us doing those things? What stops you after this talk going, okay, I'm going to do that? And you begin. Remember in the first part of this talk, I talked about the psychological impact. I work a lot with personal change with people and people's belief systems and them understanding how they operate, having an awareness of how they make decisions and what actually limits them from being successful in their business. What happens when we get a deep shock like this? We go into fright or flight or fight. Basically, we freeze because we're trying to process all this information. It bypasses the emotional filters in our system, goes straight to the area where we actually get stunned. And what we try and do then is we try and work it all out, what we should do in a logical manner in our minds. And we feel that if we can understand it all and what's going to happen and, read a hell of a lot and kind of talk to a lot of people and everybody's having the same conversation about what's going to happen, the reality is all of us don't really know. We actually don't know what's going to happen. So all we can work is in a contextual framework and operate by beginning and doing something. The first step in any change process is to take action. It's the actions that we take now that will dictate our future. We're past the point of just resizing our businesses so we can actually survive the next couple of months. But what we've got to do is get ready for the next period of 6 months. So that's what I'm saying to everybody at the moment. Once you've done this, once you've got your first furlough payment back, you're clear about who's on furlough, who's not on furlough, what you're going to do. Now we actually have to build the business again. And that's really an exciting thing to do. It's a very creative thing to do, very enjoyable thing to do, even though there's storms raging around us and people not, talking about survival and everything. In these times, the opportunity to take market share is doesn't usually exist. In a boom time, everybody's too busy, prices are too expensive. Right now, what you're getting is already marked down in asset prices. This is the time that you can join with others in other partnerships, mergers, acquisitions. This is the time that people are willing to talk to each other. This is the time that you can build a successful business for the future by doing the things that are aligned with the period of the recession that we're in. Good luck, and thanks for listening.